Commit to the bare minimum. Love the bare minimum. The bare minimum is enough. We love enough. You are enough of an artist, of a writer, of a creative right now. And we're going to carve out enough time to start integrating that so that you don't feel like, oh, well, I'm not really an artist because I don't have the time. Yes, you do. Because the time that you have, the bare minimum time that you can find and protect is enough. Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Creative podcast. Today, I want to talk about not having enough time to work on your hobbies, your passions, or just hanging out and chilling and spending time with the people that you love, right? So typically when people are having trouble finding balance between work, life, play, and rest, there are a few surface level culprits. One being not enough time, or not enough focus, or not enough space. And today I just want to talk about not having enough time. So what does this mean? It means that your work or responsibilities, etc., are too demanding and too high priority to set aside time for the other things that you want to do. So rest and recovery, play, just to have fun, and time for yourself and hanging out with other people. So when I say work, life, play, rest, that life bucket encompasses things like spending time with friends, spirituality, community things. So like going to church or volunteering. Well, volunteering would be work. But anything that sort of is like community based or just doesn't quite fit into any of the other buckets. And work-life, play-rest balance developed when I was like, it's so much more than work-life balance. Like, it's not just work and then things that we do that aren't work. You specifically need designated play, creativity, fun, joy, passion. And you also specifically need downtime. We can't be filling every minute of the day with productivity. That's a recipe for burnout, which is why everybody's burned out. Hooray. So I myself, even teaching this work-life, play-rest balance thing for like 3 years at this point, at least 2 years, I had it wrong. Like I had my ratios off. I was thinking, okay, if you can keep work to roughly like 50%, then you're good. Because I had this idea that people spend probably like 80% of their lives doing work or tasks or productivity. No, the math is not mathing. If there are 168 hours in a week, you're going to spend almost half that. No, not almost half that, but you're going to spend like 60 something of that sleeping already. And so I was like, well, okay, 50% of your waking hours, basically, which means that I still wasn't like adequately representing rest in all of my immaculate pie chart work on this topic. So I have revised my pie chart and my approach to work-life play-rest balance. But I don't want to talk about my recommended math on the breakdown between these 4 categories. I want to talk about what it actually looks like for you right now. So if you have an idea in your mind, you're like, oh, I probably spend 50% of my time resting, 25% of my time working, or I don't know what your ratios are, but that would be a very restful one, right? Doesn't that sound delicious? And maybe don't try to factor in sleep. Think about your waking hours and think about how much of those living awake consciousness hours you are spending doing work, labor, paid or unpaid, volunteering, picking up the kids, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, all of that is work. Work is not just your day job. So here's a fun little activity for you. It is estimate your work, life, play, rest ratio, percentages, hours, whatever, however you want to break it down. And then set a timer for 60 seconds and make a list of all of the work-related tasks that you've done in the last week. And then set a timer for 60 seconds and write down all the times that you set aside deliberate time for play, fun, and joy. And then do it again for social and spiritual activity. which would be like your life bucket. And then another 60-second timer and do it for deliberate downtime and rest besides sleep. So things like taking a long bubble bath and reading a book. That sounds amazing. Or taking a nap on the couch, or just kind of cozying up and playing a game in the evening. Just sort of restful, restorative activities. And then look at those lists and tally them up and see if the ratio's there. So like if you write down 12 work tasks and then your total tasks across all 4 of these lists was like 20 things, then 12 out of 20 means you're spending a little more than half of your time working. So that is how you will compare those percentages. And this is just a thought experiment. You don't have to report anything. You don't get a gold star if you correctly predicted your ratios. This is an opportunity to look at those numbers. And so if you're an analytical person, you're going to love this one. And if you're not an analytical person, you're going to be like, why are you making me do this? Also, this is a podcast. You don't have to do shit. But when you take a look at it and you see, oh, okay, my ratios are different than I thought they would be, or different than I would like them to be, then you can work on small little shifts to increase your play, for instance, or increase your rest, decrease your work so that you have more time for other things. And these are just like kind of little things that you can do. And then you actually have a way to measure them. So again, if you're an analytical, quantitative researcher of a human, this one's right up your alley, right? It's like science on yourself. Maybe make a hypothesis. If I spend the next 30 days increasing my rest by 10%, I will be happier. I will be more relaxed. I will be a pleasure to be around, whatever it is. And again, I want to hit the importance of the baby step, little tiny habit change here. So let's say we're looking at the next 30 days, or, I love a 90-day goal. So we could look at the next 90 days of your life, and you want to shift this ratio to one that's more in line with your ideal. You can't just overhaul, right? Like you can't take 2 weeks off from being in your life and come back and be like, new schedule, new me. I did it. I'm a new person. No, life is still going to be happening around you. Like the dishes are still going to be dirty and your kids are still going to need to go to soccer practice. So little teeny tiny things, right? Like maybe at that soccer practice, you listen to a really chill audiobook that relaxes you, or you listen to a really fun audiobook that's engaging you, or take a paper book if you like paper books. Some people have trouble with the paper book. Some people have trouble with the audiobook. I'm all about accommodating yourself. So take a book of any variety, or just your favorite music, right? And just kind of jam out on the soccer field. And they'll be like, oh, that's that weird parent that dances. That's fine. You can be that weird parent that dances. I love that for you. So that's activity number 1, which is like sort of a little more quantitative and mathy. Activity number 2, for you to examine this lack of time and start to shift toward having enough time for whatever it is that you want to do. A creative goal, a personal project of any type. I don't know, you're applying to grad school and you want to write your essay. Whatever the thing is that you want to do, I advise you to think about the bare ass minimum. Bare minimum. We tend to talk about the bare minimum like it is a bad thing. Like, you're only doing like just enough to get by. This is like quiet quitting, right? It's like just quiet quit your life by only doing what you are contractually obligated to fulfill, which I'm pretty sure is like eating and drinking water and making enough money to live. So what does your body need? If operating your body had a job description, what would be on it, right? It would be like eat 3 meals a day with a snack. Don't have too much coffee. I say, and if you're on video, you get this beautiful image of an iced coffee the size of my head from Dunkin' Donuts. I'm trying to find out if cold brew doesn't upset my stomach the way that regular coffee upsets my stomach. Being 35 has taken a lot from me, but I still love it. I still love you, 35, but I need you to leave me alone on coffee and spicy food, okay? I need them to live. Thank you. So let's get back to this bare minimum idea. So you know how to operate your body at a bare minimum, right? It's like, okay, cool. Eat, drink water, don't die. nailing it. The bare minimum for your job, right? You're like, go to meetings, fulfill my obligations, clock out at 5. The bare minimum for your household, like you might be able to get away with cleaning the bathrooms once a month if you don't have like children who are making terrible messes or roommates who are making terrible messes. I don't know your life. Like my partner and I, our bathroom probably only gets like deep cleaned once a month. Like we'll like kind of wipe down the counter or something, like if there's like a mess, we clean it up. But the whole like top to bottom, scrub the shower, scrub the toilet, scrub all the things, sweep and mop, like that gets done maybe once a month. That's our bare minimum. Because at that point I'm like, this is looking a little funky. We should do something. So like my mom growing up, she was a bathrooms every week person. And so like that's how I grew up, as I learned like the bathroom must be spotless on Sunday. Whatever happens during the week happens during the week, but on Sunday it will be clean again. And part of this burnout recovery, I was going to say project. It's not really a project. I'm a human being. Part of my burnout recovery process has been reducing those standards. So things that I thought were like, God told me that I had to clean this once a week. Actually, God is not involved. So I can choose to clean that thing once a month, right? Which gives me 1/4 of the task that it used to be, which suddenly opens up some fucking time, right? Talk about not having enough time. What can you reduce the frequency or intensity of in your life? So think about the bare minimums that you need for work, which is like working around the house and working at your job. Like, obviously you can't be like, I need more time for rest and life and play, so I quit effective immediately. And then you just sashay out of the office. I would love that for you, but we probably will continue to need money to live for a while. So maybe not the best. Your bare minimum for life. So this for me is like, I would love to actually see somebody in person at least once a month. Like I would like a socializing thing. So like my bestie from high school, or my friend who lives 45 minutes away from me in Cleveland and who I haven't seen in a year because it's just too insurmountable a drive. Would love to go have some Indian food with him. Who else? I don't know. I just made a new friend in the Akron area, so actually local to me. And I'm like, oh, holy crap, I can like go on a coffee date. So what's my bare minimum for like socializing, spiritual life? So for me, that's journaling twice a month with the moon, right? A journal on the new moon, journal on the full moon. That fulfills my bare minimum spiritual obligation. If you're listening to the audio only podcast, I'm doing a lot of like hand motion around like my heart as I talk about my spiritual fulfillment. So that's what I'm doing today. We're talking with our hands. And then your bare minimum for play and rest. So like for me, I would love to work on an art project once a week. Doesn't have to be for long. It can be 5 minutes, but I'm like, I touched the art. Awesome. I'm also currently doing The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And she recommends that you take your inner artist on a date once a week for like roughly an hour. I have not been doing this. But it's fine because sometimes I do. Maybe like once a month, we do like an in-depth artist date, and I will go to a craft store, right? Like there's a Joann local to me, but they don't have a huge selection. So I like to go to Michael's because they have everything. And then I'm like, let's go on a shopping spree, artist. And my artist gets to pick out new paintbrushes and new sketchbooks that I'll never use and all these things. And it's like, that was fun. Also, you don't have to buy stuff on your artist date. A lot of the people doing the Artist's Way with me in the Creatives Rebellion are doing things like going on a walk to somewhere that's like just scenic and beautiful and calming. Or one of them like walked across like a new sort of like a new area in their neighborhood, but it was like a city bridge like over the highway. And she really enjoyed that. So I wouldn't call that calming, but she was like, it was just amazing, like from the perspective to just be able to see like all this life happening around me. I'm like, this is amazing. These are things that we don't get when we're just like up our phone's butt all day. I say this as someone who is up my phone's butt all day. I talk a mean game about reduce your screen time for self-care. Do I? Absolutely not. I need one of those lock boxes. I literally need to put my phone in jail. If anybody has a lead on a little phone jail that will prevent me from being up my phone's butt, please tell me, save me from me. Anyway, and then what's your bare minimum for rest? So the absolute bare minimum would be sleeping adequately. Like legit, get 7.5 to 9 hours of sleep a night. bare minimum. Maybe your bare minimum is more than that. Maybe you're like, I need to sleep 12 hours and take 4 naps. I love that for you. And I think that you might be a bear. And I love that for both of us. So that's activity number 2, is look at this sort of bare minimum and then use that to craft sort of what your ideal schedule would look like if these things were balanced in a way that felt good, honored your bare minimums, but also occasionally offered you additional time above the bare minimum. Hooray. Again, think about baby step, teeny tiny actions. We're not trying to do something like huge overnight. And then finally, I just want to talk about how to stay on track with these little baby steppy goals that you are making to carve out more time for your inner creative needs. And what that might look like for somebody who doesn't have time. For me, I love an external deadline or an external commitment that keeps me focused on the prize of doing the work and showing up. So that might look like joining an art class. If you're like, I don't have any time for my art, but then you sign up for a class, it's like every Thursday at 6 p.m., you got to be there, you paid for it, like you better go. Suddenly you have that hour a week for art, right? It's like a little way to trick your brain into being like, someone else is counting on me, I better follow up. It's a magical, wonderful thing. You can also like set up an accountability check-in with a buddy, or maybe do like a FaceTime or a Zoom call with friends, and you're all just sort of working on art or writing or poetry or whatever the project of the day is. Having that sort of thing once a week, or again, bare minimum, once a month. Like if you had a once a month art jam with your friends, you'd probably shift the way you think about the fact that you don't have time for art, because suddenly you're like, I don't have time for art. Well, I do. I do have time to meet with my friends once a month and we make art, and that's really fulfilling and beautiful for me. Hooray! Commit to the bare minimum. Love the bare minimum. The bare minimum is enough. We love enough. You are enough of an artist, of a writer, of a creative right now. And we're going to carve out enough time to start integrating that so that you don't feel like, oh, well, I'm not really an artist because I don't have the time. Yes, you do. Because the time that you have, the bare minimum time that you can find and protect, is enough. I love it. Oh my God. I'm so full of vibes. Hooray. I hope that with these exercises, whether you're a mathy person or a FaceTime your friends and paint a painting once a month person, anything in between, that something in this podcast helped you recognize, carve out, and protect the bare minimum of time that you have for your creative needs. I love you. You are wonderful. You are enough right now. And I'll see you next week.